going to try my hand at making Camembert, I guess. That's 2 gallons of whole milk, and it's in the hot water bath thing again. I like that method of increasing the temperature. You have to raise the temperature to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, 32 degrees Celsius. But while that's happening, you can add the calcium chloride, 1/4 teaspoon of calcium chloride, diluted in a 1/4 cup of non-chlorinated water. Hope I have at least as much success with this as I had with the triple creme. I was very pleased with the results there. If you saw the video, the first cheese that I used was quite soft, quite runny. Excellent flavor, maybe a little strong. However, when I went to finish that and started the second one, which is about 1/4 gone now, the second cheese was different. It wasn't as soft in the center. It was nice. It was spreadable on crackers or whatever, and not as strong, a bit milder. And I really liked the second one better than the first one. It's strange because they were, treated the same, but I don't know. I think it may have been a bit heavier, which may have made it a bit thicker, and that slowed things down a bit. Anyway, I want to say that everything that I'm using here has been sanitized. I use a dairy sanitizer. I buy it from the cheese-making supply place, but it's something that you, after everything's washed and clean, you dip and rinse them in this sanitizer mixed in water, and then you just allow it to air dry. You don't wipe it or anything. I used it years ago when I had goats. It's the thing that's used more often well, I think probably in all dairies. You never wipe anything that's used in a dairy. It's sanitized and allowed to air dry. So everything here has been sanitized. I'll come back when I get this up to 90 degrees, 32 degrees Celsius. The milk has reached 90 degrees. Now it's time to add the cultures. And I'm using a buttermilk culture from the same cheese company, cheesemaking.com, pre-measured in a little packet. It's a mesophilic culture. And add this to the surface of the milk and let it hydrate for a minute or two before we mix it in. I guess that's all of it. And now, at the same time, we'll add the molds. Camembert, as you know, is a white mold cheese. I'm going to get these silly spoons of mine here and figure out which is which. 1/8 of a teaspoon of Penicillium candidum. That is 1/8 of a teaspoon. Same idea, we let this hydrate for a minute or two on the surface. And a 32nd of a teaspoon of the Penicillium, or Geotrichium penicillium. No, wait a minute. I'm making these words up as I go. Geotrichum candidum, which is a very expensive mold. This little envelope will last me a long time, but a little teeny envelope of the stuff, that was $20. There is a 32nd. Don't suppose the camera's picking it up, but I can see where the other things that I've already added are hydrating down in there. That might have been a little bit on the rounded up side, so I'm not going to put it all in there. Don't want to overdo it. And now it sets for a couple of minutes, as I said, while it hydrates. Give me a chance to put some of these back in their little bags and seal them up here. You mix it in, taking a minute or so to make sure it's thoroughly mixed into the milk. You don't have to watch an entire minute of stirring here, but once it has been thoroughly mixed in, I'll cover this to retain the heat in the milk and let it ripen for 30 minutes. So come back in 30 minutes time. It's been 30 minutes and I just checked the temperature. It didn't lose any of its heat, I guess because it was covered. So that has begun the ripening process and the molding process. The two molds should be starting to develop in there. And now you add a 1/4 teaspoon of liquid single strength rennet mixed into a 1/4 cup of dechlorinated water. Dehydrated water would be an interesting thing. And this you mix in for a minute. And now after I finished mixing this in an up and down motion to get it thoroughly mixed through the milk, cover it and it sets for at least 90 minutes, the instructions say, which is a longer period of time than most cheeses would set with this much rennet. It's a small amount of rennet, but the idea is to develop a stronger protein matrix, is the word that they use. Anyway, with the stronger protein coagulated, and it will hold more moisture and hold the fat from the milk better in the curd. There are a couple of ways, probably more than a couple of ways, of molding it afterwards, but the professionals that make it in France, they don't cut the curd at all. The instructions that I have say you can cut it a bit if you want, or not cut it. Takes a little longer to fill the molds if you're not cutting it, but I'm thinking I won't cut it. I will take the longer period to fill the molds. Anyway, we'll be back in 90 minutes time. Well, the rennet is still setting, about a half hour, a little less than a half hour left to go, but I thought I would show you the setup for the next phase. Again, everything here has been sanitized. These are the Camembert molds, which are open on both ends, and they're sitting on top of a cheese mat, which is on top of a bit of a bamboo cutting board. It was the cheapest thing that I could find at the dollar store. They were $3 each. They were that size originally. I cut them in two. And the reason that they have to be on a rigid board like that, you fill these molds with the coagulated curd there, which you'll see me do shortly. Once the molds have been full and it starts to decrease in size because the whey is going out down to, say, the first level of holes or so here, you put an extra cheese mat on top and an extra board, and you flip them like so. Probably easier to do now than when there's a cheese in there, but we'll see. And that has to be done about once an hour for the first 5 hours, so that's the reason for this. This is just a draining mat. You would normally put a dish tray on there when you're washing dishes, and they would drain and dry off, whatever. Again, I bought this at the dollar store, and it's only going to be used in my cheese making. It's been sanitized, so I think that explains the equipment that we're doing. And as soon as the cheese finishes coagulating, we'll be back and fill these molds. Well, the cheese has been coagulating for 90 minutes, an hour and a half, and that's 2 hours since I added the culture and the molds. And like I said, I'm not going to cut the curd at all. I've been watching YouTube videos on making Camembert for a couple of days now. It seems to me every video that I watch, people are using a different method and they're ending up with a decent cheese, so I don't know. Anyway, I watched from a professional dairy in France, and when they're making theirs, of course, they're making thousands of them, but they're not cutting the curd at all. So they're using this clean ladle. I'm just going to put a scoop first in each one of the molds, sort of holding on the mold to keep it centered on its little board and on the drying mat. I'm thinking that a scoop in each mold will help anchor them, so I won't have to be chasing them all over the place when I'm adding more. Also, the room temperature should be maintained, it says between 70 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit, which I'm not used to. I keep my house in the daytime in the winter at 17 degrees Celsius, and that's about 62 degrees Fahrenheit. I have these programmable thermostats, and I've been reading the little manual. I guess I have managed to override that, and I've set it now at 22 degrees Celsius, which is, I don't know, 21 degrees Celsius is 70 degrees Fahrenheit, so this is 72, 73 degrees Fahrenheit, something like that. Anyway, in the target range of 70 to 75 Fahrenheit. I'm just going to continue doing this until they are full, and I will probably have to wait for them to settle. Keep adding until I've added all of the curd, or most of the curd. Anyway. And I will bring you back when they are full. I didn't keep close track of the time as to how long this took me, but an hour and a half and probably close to 2 hours to finally get all of the curd into the molds. I've been taking a spoon whenever I see little bits of the curd coming out through the holes in the side and just knocking those off, and that seems to help it to drain the whey out of the curd much better. But that's it. It is all in there. And now we'll begin the process of turning them at least 5 times once an hour. So about an hour from now, this should have shrunk down, well, close to an inch or so, and I'll do the first turning. I'll bring you back and show you that at that point. I don't know if I've emphasized yet in this video, like I try to do in most of these cheese making videos. I'm learning as I go. I have never made Camembert before, so this is not the ultimate video on how to make Camembert. It's how I'm doing it, and you'll see the finished product at the end when I cut and taste the first one. So I suggest that you look around, that you do some reading and research before you try it yourself. But this is the method that I'm doing, which is sort of a combination of several methods that I have seen on YouTube and through the recipes from the cheesemaking.com website. I'm following their recipe almost exactly, but with some few changes. Anyway, come back in an hour's time here. Well, it's been 1 hour since I filled the molds, and they are down. That one's probably down more than others. But I don't know, not an inch, 3/4 of an inch for that one, and less for the rest of them, I guess. I suspect that when I finish here, the cheeses are going to have different weights as well, because when I was adding the curd, I was adding whenever there was space in one of them, and some of them were going down faster than others, so I'm sure some of them got more curd than others did. So now what I'm going to do is try to flip it without throwing it in the middle of the floor. This is just another one of the cheese mats. You need at least 5 cheese mats and 5 boards to do it individually like this. I've seen people flip 2 of them at once, and I thought that would be really pressing my luck, so I'm not doing that. There's one flipped anyway. And remove the mat. And there, this cheese curd stuck to the mat. I guess I'll just drag it across and scrape it off. A little spoon here. And that should cause it to expel its liquid faster. I'll do one more, maybe another one out front here, reusing that, well, I don't know though. The holes are pretty well plugged in. I'll try running it through some water. That didn't unplug all the holes, but it unplugged quite a few of them. You don't want to use a sealed up mat because you want the whey to run out through it. Exactly trusting it, I guess, is my problem. But there is two of them turned anyway, and I will come back. That one there has curd on it too. I will come back and show you at the beginning of the next hour how much further they have settled down. Well, I managed to make the first 4 turnings without any disaster, and hopefully from now on it'll continue to get a bit easier, I guess. I have discovered, though, that I use the spray attachment on my faucet there, that on hot, I can get the, what do you call this thing, the drying mat cleared out better of the curd that was sticking in it. I don't know how long it will continue to stick. I think once this solidifies more, it won't be such a problem. But okay, so it's not, didn't really stick on that one. I guess that issue is over with, hopefully. Trying to center it up a bit here, though, so I won't lose it the next time. I'll do one more like I did the last time. I won't make you watch me flip all 4. Still makes me quite nervous to do it. Scared I'm going to lose one. Yeah, that one I'll probably clean a bit before I go on and do the other 2, but I'll come back in another hour. You can really see where they have dropped down quite a bit now, probably a couple of inches. This is the 3rd turning. Mats aren't as matted up with cheese, with curd as they were. It's becoming more solid, so it isn't sticking to the mat. Looking more like a cheese down in there all the time. You're getting a good view of my back, I realize. I just don't want to take the risk of dropping one of these things. Well, there. That is flip number 3 accomplished, so we'll be back in an hour's time. Well, they're shrinking more all the time, which they're supposed to do. It says that they should get down to a 1/3, and oh, I don't know. These aren't down much more than 2/3. They're at the 2/3 level, I would think, right now anyway. But not that that matters that much, I guess. We've got a couple of more hours of draining here yet. This is flip number 4. flip one more for you. It must be kind of boring watching me flip cheese, so I don't want the video to be all flipping cheese here. We will come back when it's time to flip them for the 5th time in an hour's time. I just finished flipping them for the 5th time. I didn't bother taking more video of me flipping cheese. Another hour, of course, of waiting, but I got a feeling that I'm probably going to be carrying on and flipping them for a few more hours. They're still not down to where they should be, at least according to the recipe, where they should be. This one back here is the closest. It's probably down to about half the depth of the mold, and maybe this one too. They're getting there, but I don't think in an hour's time they'll be down to 1/3, so I will probably keep flipping them over the next few hours, and I won't bother to continue showing that. I'll show it when I'm finished with the flipping process and ready to start the salting process. I just turned them for the 10th time, and they are still losing some of the way. They're getting down closer to being 1/3 of the height, though, but I don't think I will salt them tonight. I'm going to let them go overnight, and I'll start the salting process in the morning, but I won't be turning them anymore. I think 10 turnings must be enough. Come back at this again in the morning. Time to do some salting, I guess. They did finally shrink down to their 1/3 of the height of the mold. And now you put a half teaspoon of, I'm using what they call cheese salt. It's just a very fine non-iodized salt. You put a half on top of each one. Rub it in the surface and around the sides. More goes on the top than on the sides, because in about 6 hours time you'll turn the cheese, put a half teaspoon on the bottom, which will then be the top, and rub it around the sides again, and that make sure that the sides get salted twice, even though it's not as much salt as goes on the top. It all evens out in the end, is what I'm trying to say. So I will now finish salting them, and 6 hours from now salt them again before they start their drying process. And once they are salted, they go back in the mold. I'm showing you the one that's going to be the most difficult, because the cheese, this one cracked for some reason. Not quite sure why they want them back in the mold, but it says to put them back in the mold once they have been salted. So 6 hours from now they come out of the molds, get flipped over, and this all happens again. 6 hours have gone by since the first salting, and that did cause more of the whey to come out, and the cheeses are again a bit smaller. So the process this time is to turn it over and a half teaspoon of salt on what was the bottom and is now the top. Rub it in and rub it around the sides. And it goes back in the mold again. They're getting much easier to handle. I'll do the other three. You don't need to watch that, I guess. And I will be glad when the next 6 hours are up so I can turn the heat back down. I am not used to having my house this warm. I'm finding it very uncomfortable. But as soon as they have been salted and rest for another 6 hours, then the drying process begins, and that's at a lower temperature. So we'll come back at that time. The salting phase is over, and now they're going to dry, and fortunately at a cooler room temperature. It says between, well, I've lost it, here we are, between 58 and 65 degrees Fahrenheit, 60 to 75% humidity, moisture. Well, as I said, I keep my house at 17, which is about 62, so that's in the target range. I suspect the humidity will be less than they're calling for, but not much I can do about that. It's winter time and the house is dry in the winter. They're in the same container that they will ripen in, and what I will do is I will just put this cover on loosely and leave space for the moisture to escape, and I will drape it with cheesecloth to prevent dust or fly or anything like that getting in. And you continue this until the cheese surfaces are completely dry, so that could take a day or two, I guess, and turning several times during the drying process. So we'll be back when they have finished drying in a day or two. 2.5 days later it took for the 4 little Camembert to fully dry, and I almost think I can see the development of some mold. It won't show, I'm sure, but right on the surface of that one right there, I think the white mold is starting to develop. Anyway, now they get sealed in this plastic container. Put the lid on and snap it down, and they go in the cheese cave refrigerator, a temperature range of 52 to 56, and it's in that range now. You'll see when I put it in there, I have a Gouda cheese in there that's been waxed and is aging at 92 to 95% humidity, and the way to achieve that is to seal this up, and the still moisture in the cheese that's coming out will increase the humidity in there up into the 90% range. Yeah, I'm quite sure I can see mold developing on the edge of all of these, so that has started, and now it'll have to be turned every day or it will grow the mold down through the cheese mats. I had that experience when I made the triple creme. So they will be turned on a daily basis, and we'll come back when it's time to wrap them in probably, oh, I don't know, a week to 10 days or so, when they're fully covered with the white mold. Well, just as I opened the door and put them in, the refrigerator come on, so it has that blue LED light. But this is the Gouda that I was mentioning that's been in there now for, I don't know, a week to 10 days or so. But the video on that will be coming out quite a bit after the video on the Camembert. The Camembert should be ready in a couple of weeks, or 2 to 3 weeks anyway, and the Gouda be close to, well, a month and a half yet anyway before that's ready. And I'm adding to the thing. Today I'm starting a Colby cheese, but there they are in the cheese fridge, and like I said, we'll come back when it's time to wrap them. Time has passed. It's now 8 days since I put the Camembert in the cheese fridge to start ripening and maturing, and I think they're ready to wrap. They're still firm to the touch, which means that the mold, I guess, hasn't gone fully into the center to soften all that much yet, but they're covered with the white mold, so I'm going to wrap them anyway in this intelligent paper. I say intelligent paper, the center of the paper, or the side that I'm wrapping the cheese on, is waxed, and it is actually paper. The exterior here isn't paper, it's plastic. And the theory behind it is, the initial part of the aging once it's wrapped, and I'm not very good at this, as you can see, it will, the wax surface will absorb moisture from the cheese, and then later on it will give that moisture back to the cheese. So, that's the theory. I have two sizes of paper and I never seem to have one that's just right for wrapping the cheese. This is the medium size paper. I have the extra large ones which I wrapped the triple creme in, but that would be far too much paper to wrap the Camembert in. So anyway, I'll come back and show you the 4 of them and put them back in the fridge for a few more days before I try one. Well, I'll show you a couple of the cheeses that are in progress here, I guess. At least I hope it's progress. That's a Gouda cheese that won't be ready to try until almost the end of March. And this is a Colby, which, if it's going along okay, should be ready to try the 3rd of March, I guess is written on top of it. And by the time I got to the 3rd and 4th cheeses to wrap here, I had sort of a method going, and they wrapped better. But of course, by the time it comes time to wrap more cheeses months from now, I will have forgotten that. But these are going back in the cheese cave refrigerator here. And even though they're wrapped, I will turn them once a day, but I think I'm going to try one of them in maybe 3 or 4 days or so anyway, just to see if they're ready to eat yet or not. I don't want to let them go too far and get overripe. Well, it's been about 5 days since I wrapped the Camembert, so I'm going to give this one a try. It's still fairly firm, so I'm not expecting it to be very runny in the center or anything. There's some liquid there though, or liquefied cheese, whatever. Ooh. Get it on one of these little crackers or not? Yeah, it's starting to get quite soft in the center. I'll leave the other ones that are still in the cheese fridge to age for a few more days before I put them over into the regular refrigerator to slow them down so they won't all turn to mush before I get a chance to eat them. Well, might not be completely soft, but it has a wonderful flavor. Well, thank you for watching this long saga on the making of Camembert. Not very difficult, really, I guess. Time consuming like all of these cheeses tend to be, but this one produced 4 cheeses, so that's pretty good. Well, thank you for watching. I'll get this up on YouTube so you can have a look at the process.